This is coffee number 5. I'm your host, Lara Schmoisman. Hi guys, welcome back to coffee number 5. Are you ready for it? Because I know I am, and I'm just so pumped up. I mean, we had a pre-recording that I know that this one is going to be fantastic. So I want to talk about my favorite topics that that is content with intention. That I believe anything we do in marketing, everything we do in life needs to be with an intention. And also, as you all know, the search engines are changing too, and the search is by intention too. So let me welcome to Elizabeth Robillard. Welcome. Good, I'm very good, and I'm so happy that you're here because you have a very special role at eTail.
I
And
do.
it's about creating that content, and the content that is going to be getting people to talk, and not only to talk at the event. You are the one who are helping set up trends of what people are going to be talking for a long, long time, which is fascinating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, my role, just to kind of give you a full picture of what I do, basically, I work on our company, WBR. I'll step back even further. We're
Okay.
both a market research company and an events company. So, basically, we do research with folks in different industries. We'll take eTail for an example, the event that I work on. We will reach out to folks in the industry, so anyone who's a digital marketer, anyone who works in e-commerce, and just try to get a picture of what their current challenges are, what their opportunities are, what technology they're using, what they see as being trends that are coming down the pipeline in the next year or so. Basically, we use that research, which is usually about 60 to 80 calls, and that ends up being the topics that you see on our programs, on the eTail program in particular for me. So I take everything that I hear and I turn it into topics on the program, and basically sort of set the agenda for the events. We want to make sure that we're really getting to the heart of what everyone's talking about, what everyone's thinking about, and then we invite folks in the industry to come in and talk on those topics and really kind of get to the heart of that content. We really want to make sure that the event is built by the industry for the industry, and when folks come to the event, they can really get those takeaways that they need
And
for.
this is so challenging because it's so time sensitive too.
It
Because
is.
I know that you're doing a research like way in advance. Like right now, probably you're already planning for Palm Springs for next year.
Yeah, we are.
And we're doing the research and even talking about, and this it happened in a conference that I was part of, and that I was in a panel with a brand that they seems that they were doing really well,
Mhm.
and by a couple months after that conference, it showed that it wasn't doing really well anymore.
Yep.
So it happened. How do you mitigate that risk?
That's a really great question. I can actually think of one perfect example that we're all living in right now in the world of retail. Of course, right now when I'm doing research for Palm Springs for 2026, I'm hearing a lot about tariffs and market
Mm-hmm.
volatility and what's kind of happening in that zone. Obviously, we can't really know where we're going to be in 2026 with all of this, where things will shake out. What we do know is that there'll be a lot of lessons learned from this time period and a lot of things that people have been forced to do. A lot of different ways people will have sort of rethought about how to exist and what their businesses look like during these times of volatility. And that's evergreen, right? That's always going to be something that businesses need to think about. So we always kind of try to take a little bit more of that, 30,000 foot view, especially for our keynote topics. Really just to make sure that even if it is something timely, that it kind of has an ever-present takeaway from it. So that's kind of a real life example that I'm dealing with
Well,
right
it's
now of
like
how we're
if we
thinking about that.
say we went through COVID, but lessons that we learned through COVID that we can be prepared next time.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
remember that prior COVID, I used to lay out, and I still do somehow for my clients, a strategy as a whole year, or I
Mhm.
know the certain promotions I want to have, or we know, like, of course, 4th of July, you have certain things that they're there and you cannot change them. The rest is more like a playground. But I was planning way in ahead of time. And
Yeah,
I realized that I cannot do this anymore because it's evolving. And I think also from COVID times to now, technologies and platforms change a lot.
absolutely.
And so we don't know what platforms we're going to be using in 3 months. We need to be evolving with the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And I think it's been happening a lot faster since then.
I would totally agree with that. Another thing that's kind of coming up, as also kind of a post-COVID thing, is the fact that there had been a lot of growth and a lot of investment. There had been some decent years for folks the past 4 or 5 years, and now we're sort of seeing a little bit of a downturn, I would say, or at least sort of uncertainty, and people aren't sure how things are going to go. But there was such an explosion of investment in new technology during that time period. And now people are kind of having to rethink, maybe audit what they've sort of put in place, streamline things a little bit. So, yeah, that's something that we're sort of seeing as well. There is new platforms are coming up every day. Still, there's new vendors coming
Yeah,
into
and
the
you,
new
you
startups.
you guys also have this like duality that in one side you're doing content, but in the other side you are like a marketplace for
Mhm.
technology.
Yeah.
So how you can mix both of them, or how do you choose certain technology to be part on your panels or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think our goal is always to put the content first and foremost. That's one of the things that we sort of, really push ourselves towards. We want to make sure that our content is sort of the shining star of the event. So we are very particular about which kind of providers sort of mesh well with which content. We want to make sure that solution providers who are going to get on stage really are able to speak genuinely to the content that we have. So usually it's content first and sort of company second. So that's kind of how we make sure that we're getting the right players to talk about the right things.
And let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Because I've been in eTail, at eTail and Palm Springs. I know
Mhm.
that you have eTail Boston and London.
Mhm.
Also, what's the difference from one coast to a different coast, or even in the other side of the world in London?
Mhm.
What's the difference of the events? Why you feel like that you need to have different events, or they have different focus on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start out by saying each event does get its own research cycle. So every time we're doing any event, whether it be Boston, whether it be Palm Springs, whether it be London, we also do an event in Toronto as well. Each one is getting fresh new research done depending on the time of year that it's taking place. So each event will have a different bit of content that it's sort of working off of. I will say, coast to coast, the two bi-coastal events, very different in audience type. We get, for the most part, California folks and sort of West Coast people that are coming to the Palm Springs show. And then the Boston show does lean pretty heavy East Coast, especially Northeast as well. I'll say the Boston show tends to feel a little bit more academic, a little bit more data focused, a little bit more sort of
Ooh,
like
you just say sweet
analytical.
words to me.
I know. Well, it's funny, we've got Harvard nearby, we've got MIT nearby. So it just kind of ends up feeling a little bit more technical at the Boston
Yeah.
show. And then Palm Springs, obviously, very buzzy, very brand driven. Both have their benefits, but they do end up having a really different feel to them just sort of by the benefit of their location.
There are some questions that I need to ask because
Yeah.
now with the wall situation and the tariffs, I feel like the wall is getting a little more subdivided than before when it's easier to send products from one country to another. Do you
Mhm.
see or perceive this that this will be a challenge for the events?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's definitely anytime there's any sort of change to the way retailers are having to do business, we definitely see an impact on the event. Conferences can be a challenging industry to work in. COVID was an interesting time for us as a live
Mm-hmm.
events business. But our goal is always really to make sure that we are there to be a place where retailers can come to get answers for those questions. There's so many questions that they have right now, especially about tariffs, especially about kind of what's going on. And they want to be able to network with other retailers who are going through the same thing. Just kind of make sure that, they can learn that they're not alone and kind of what people are doing. Everyone's doing something a little bit different. But there's
I want to
no,
clarify that when you say retailers, we're not
yeah,
only talking about the Walmarts of the world, we're talking about D2C and
yes.
anyone who sells online.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So we're about, that's a good point. We're about 50-50 retailer and brand. So yeah, both are part of the mix.
Yes. So you have a lot of companies that they're coming and they're doing basically the same thing, or they have the same
Hmm.
offering.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Because also there is a networking, like you mentioned. How do you feel like how companies get along, or how is the competition there?
That's a really, really interesting question. Usually we don't have a ton of drama with that. You'd think you would, but with, you know, we've had maybe one or two I can think of in my head in the past, retailers who maybe didn't want to sit with a competitor retailer on a panel, or someone who was a little bit shy, didn't sort of want to spill their secrets. But I would say this group is really interested in general and just kind of bringing the industry forward. A rising tide raises all boats. So I feel like this industry is one that is really into sharing, networking. That's a huge part of the event. And there's not really any, animosity or a huge amount of competition that comes from anybody in that regard.
So
It is kind of special in that way because it's not the case in every industry.
something else I need to ask, because I was even told, well, you really don't need to go to eTail. There are a lot of events that they happen
Mhm.
around eTail.
Yeah,
And I kind of disagree, because one of the reasons I go is because of the content.
yeah.
So, what is this culture of having events on the side of the events, and
Yeah,
how the event planners feel about this?
that's a great question. It's sort of new for us to experience some of those events outside of the event. I know exactly what you're talking about. I think in our world, we're trying to welcome that a little bit more. We're trying to work a little bit more with the folks who are kind of putting on some of those outside events. We love it when people are enthusiastic about meeting with our audience. And we want our attendees to be able to have the best experience possible. So if someone's having a fantastic party and our attendees are able to go, amazing. We're never going to fight that. But as long as folks are willing to work with us and kind of, partner with us a little bit more, we think that's great. So we're super open to that, and we kind of love, we had a lot of great media partners at the Palm Springs event that threw some fantastic parties. I know we're going to have some at the Boston show too. So that's kind of a new world for us. We're kind of figuring out our way through it, but it's exciting, and we love that people have that enthusiasm for the show.
Well, now this is a question that everyone to hear. What's the
Mhm.
trends that are you seeing? And after you're talking with all these people, so I know that we're still early in your research, but
Yeah.
can you share something that you see with us? Is AI over? Because honestly, I just feel like we talk about this, and
Yep.
I'm a little over AI, and I think we're not putting enough attention in other things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. One question I always ask people outside of, kind of my typical what your challenges, what your opportunities are, is what's something that you're kind of tired of hearing? And overwhelmingly, everyone was talking about AI when I asked that question during research, but sort of knowing that it is still something everyone needs to know about. I think we're always laser focused at eTail at making sure that, when we're talking about AI, it's through a really specific
Well,
tactical
but also
use
you
case.
guys were one of the first ones trying to encourage and talking about AI when people weren't even talking about that yet. And it
Yes,
was like, they weren't sure even going to those sessions. And it was, and then suddenly everything became AI.
it's
So we
true.
think that you think we learned something about it, that people weren't in the trend and now everyone is trying to be ahead of the trend.
I do. I think it's interesting. It would still, we hear about it so much, but we're still kind of in a nascent phase of it. There's not a lot of hugely amazing use cases that are across an entire ecosystem yet. There's some really great bite-sized use
Okay.
cases of
Can
it.
I give you a very unpopular opinion about
Yeah,
this?
please, please.
Okay, I really think that there is a challenge in the usage of AI. People don't know how to use prompts, how to create or educate the AI.
Mhm.
And what I'm seeing is that a lot of people want to try the platforms and then they blame the platforms for not working when there is no. I don't think that people have been trained how to use AI. We've been using it for a long time, at least me in my team,
Mhm.
and that my AI is a whip. I mean, yeah, I have it so trained, but it takes a lot of work to train AI.
It does. It does. And it requires, we've been talking about this since the beginning. It requires clean, well housed data. And I think
Yep.
the other thing that we don't talk about is there's even a step that you have to do before you get to the AI, which is data governance. And I think that
Yes, and
that's something that's
uh,
coming up more and more because people are like, oh, yes, we do have to focus on this, which is not
or
a sexy
in the
topic, but
storytelling. I mean, I see it from the brand sides, and they
Mhm.
want, oh, this doesn't feel like my brand. No, because you're not teaching who your brand is. But a lot of people, they don't even know who the brand is, what their brand voice is. The brand voice is all over the place, and they don't educate AI who their consumer is either.
Absolutely. Yes, that's definitely something. So yeah, AI is coming up a ton, but hopefully, we're trying to again make sure that it's very use case based. I would say the other thing that's coming up a lot, this is going to be huge, and you and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is just talking about discovery, talking about search. It's a whole new world of search and where people are finding you. And for so long, we've been doing a search summit at eTail for 15, 20 years, and it was kind of a ho hum topic for a while because there wasn't anything incredibly new or different. But in the past 2 years, things have exploded. It's
Well, and a
completely
lot because of AI too.
absolutely.
But yeah, it's the search. I don't think that the brands or consumers are understanding how complicated it is. And you can, I see, and I want your take on this from the content side, because I've seen a lot of brands making the mistake of working with different companies to do SEO, to work with social media, to work with their email, when from my point of view, they are fractionating the messaging
Mhm.
instead of putting it all together with the same SEO strategy.
Yeah, it's tough. I can understand doing that because it is everything, every channel, everything you have to do, it's so daunting. Having to think about all of those different things and controlling your messaging at all those different touch points and being everywhere. Search engine optimization, being everywhere for everybody. I don't envy the world of
Well, you just,
retail
I
and
can,
brands right now.
I don't know, maybe that's because of my how my brain works or what I'm super passionate about. But for me, it's like looking at the big picture, and
Yeah,
is you need to go all in the big picture. You cannot fragment anymore like you used to. Like you have your strategy for Instagram and you have your strategy for Amazon. Now everything is interconnected because even Amazon can work with TikTok.
yep, yep.
We were talking about this earlier today, that it takes a lot of training.
It does.
And, and I think that there is a learning curve that many companies, they're not giving the chance to themselves to understand. They just go into the platform. They don't understand the foundation of why they're
Absolutely.
doing things.
Absolutely. And traditionally it seems like SEO and search teams have been pretty like siloed and segmented from the rest of the
Mhm.
business, which I guess made sense, but now it's making less and less sense given how connected all everything is
Oh,
becoming.
uh, absolutely. Now, my in the agency at the Darl, we have our SEO team. All their strategies come straight from SEO, and it's kind of reverse engineer. We know who your audience is, what they're looking for, and then we create content specifically for them and what their search are. And their search, they are not anymore just in Google. They're everywhere, and it's by
They're everywhere.
intention.
They're everywhere. But at the same time, they are still on Google. So you have to still be with the
Yeah, of course.
traditional search but also keep track of all the other options as well. So again,
And,
kind
and
of
I,
comes
I
back to
want to
like
say
wanting.
this, that not necessarily the same person will look in the same way in the same in different platforms.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That, I mean, yes, every customer is completely different. They're going to want different things, and they're going to have a completely different journey and a completely
Exactly,
different
but even
path
the
to purchase.
same consumer or customer, they're gonna go on Instagram and do a search in a different way that they will do it in Google,
Yep.
because it's
Absolutely.
how they consume the media.
And they might do it different every time. You know what I mean? They might have one thing that they know that they really want, that they go straight for. They might have something that they're, kind of hemming and hawing about. But not every customer is going to have the same funnel, and for every purchase, the funnel is going to be completely different.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
It is a little, well, I love it, so I cannot complain about it.
Look, it
But
doesn't feel crazy to me.
but yeah, I get it. I have to be a little crazy to love it. But anyway, so let's go back to content,
Sure.
because content to me is king, but
Mhm.
consistency is queen, and we know who rules the house.
Yeah.
So, how important to you is to go over, because you have a very unique audience.
Mhm.
Your audience are professionals, and your audience are brands.
Yep.
How do you create content and for these two different kind of um, audience that they come to you, but at the same time you know that people, they need repetition, they need to understand. And when we're talking about complex topics, what you bring in your talks are not simple answers or
Yep.
simple math. And there's also in marketing and platform is a lot of trial and error, and see what works for one brand might not work for another brand. So how
Absolutely.
do you create that consistency and talking about similar topic or the same topic without being, oh, again, the same?
That's a very, very good question, and I'll tell you, it's very difficult. It's hard, especially year after year. Really trying to keep up with what's new, what's different, trying to keep things balanced. You're totally right that we have, not just D2C and retailers as well, but also just every kind of possible retailer you can think of, and across that whole customer life cycle as well. So we've got those folks that are really focused on search. We've got those folks that are really focused on social, and we've got those people that are really focused on merchandising and UX. Completely different jobs that are all kind of connected, but we have to make sure that we have a little bit of content for everybody, and at every different kind of skill level. There will be some that are kind of just coming into roles, or are incredibly proficient, or some people who are masters who have been doing this for 20, 25 years. So again, it all really comes back to that research and making sure that the people that we're speaking to represent the people that are going to be in the audience, so that we can have that balance of topics, and really make sure that we're kind of uncovering everything that matters to everybody. Again, a little bit of a daunting
Yeah.
job, but that's our burden, I guess.
When you have, I mean, let's talk about the people that they come to the event, that they pay their ticket because they're interested in the education. Do you feel that they come in A, with an agenda to learn something new, B, to meet someone else, three, or C, surprise me, or D, trying to find magic?
um, I would say all of the above. I would say E, all of the above. I think, folks definitely are coming for the content. They want to sit, they want to learn. Definitely a lot of folks that do that, who come, have plotted out what sessions they're going to go to because it makes sense with what they're thinking about at the moment. There's definitely folks who are just coming to network. eTail is a great place to talk with other folks, meet other folks in the industry. And yeah, there is a little bit of magic there too, though, because I think, it's magical when you sit down with someone at lunch and you're going through some problem, your email deliverability is bad, and you sit down next to someone and they're like, oh, actually, I just tried this. Have you tried that? Like, that's magic to me. The fact that you just randomly sat down next to somebody who happens to have a solution to your problem. So I think the people who have been to eTail and have kind of experienced a little bit of that before, might come back for the magic of the, just kind of random encounter where you kind of get some information that you need. So I'd say a little bit of everything.
So what people can expect of going to eTail, Boston, whatever in the next few months or years?
Absolutely. So eTail
I know
Boston,
that in Boston, you guys are having something special that is coming back.
we
Maybe.
are. Great reminder, great plug. So we, for the Boston show, are bringing back, kind of rebranded our awards. We used to do awards for eTail, and we have brought them back. They are now the eTail Visionary Awards. So we're doing a award ceremony at the House of Blues in Boston, which is going to be super fun. But we've got we've got 4 different categories. We're currently accepting nominations for those different categories. And our advisory board is going to be picking the winners.
What are those categories?
Oh gosh, off the top of my head. I think it's
well, just go to the website, and I'm sure it's going to be there.
Go to the website. I've got too many things on my brain today, but yes, we do have a page on the website that has the 4 categories for this year's Visionary Awards. But they're going to be great, and we also, for the first time, are running local store tours. So we're going to a couple of different retail locations around Boston, which has a couple of great big shopping areas. So we're going to be checking out some local stores on a tour on the first day, which is super fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being with us today. And it was a great chat.
Yeah, thank you, Lara. It was my pleasure.
And to you guys, I will see you next week with more Coffee Number 5.
Find everything you need at laraschmoisman.com or in the episode notes right below. Don't forget to subscribe.
It was so good to have you here today. See you next time. Catch you on the flip side. Ciao, ciao.